Hi, I'm Christian. I'm the creative director on Hitman.
So this is the first next-gen Hitman. What has the new technology allowed you to do? Because last time with Absolution you were pushing it with the crowd stuff and all that. What has the next-gen allowed you to do on top of that?
Well, the new technology basically allowed us to, first of all, take a look at our legacy, our DNA of 15 years of Hitman, and try to figure out what will be the best possible Hitman game in our minds. And obviously one of the things we started looking at was Hitman Blood Money, which had some pretty large levels, and it had this basic proposition or promise that every mission is about a hit, and that's basically all you do. And that was our starting point, where we said, okay, we want large levels, we want everything to be about the hits all the time. And then we also looked at some of our previous games like Silent Assassin, where we felt we had a really good tone. We traveled the world quite a bit, and the targets and what happened felt sort of high profile. And that also became sort of a thing for us. And then finally we also have Absolution, where we created living, breathing worlds where, you know, NPCs are talking, what they actually say matters, you should listen to what they're doing, and that's very much a part of Hitman as well. And then finally we felt that, you know, Hitman Absolution really played nicely. It was a good game on the sticks, you know where everything went, you could pick it up and play it. So that was the starting point. And then what we were allowed to do here with Hitman is actually bring to life some of the largest sandboxes we ever built. And large doesn't only mean large in the sense of scale. The Paris mission we're showing here is very large. It is an entire palace. It's the gardens. From the basement and to the attic, everything is gameplay space. It's one huge level, and then you obviously have a save game system, so you can sort of experiment. Maybe if you know you're going to do something crazy, it's a good idea to save before you do it. But what it really also meant is the amount of NPCs we have in a level that are actually fully functioning is through the roof in this game. And the amount of things they can do and react to is also really, really vast. And that's actually quite important, because in our game you can expect to, let's say you plant an explosive in one end of Paris, sorry, the palace. I don't think Paris is, maybe that's an entire city, but in the palace in Paris, and then maybe you go to the complete other end of the level and blow it up. That means that we cannot cheat. The AI here needs to be fully functioning at all times in all places, and what will happen is actually independent of whether you are there or not, which could be integral to some, you know, clever scheme that some players come up with, blowing up different elements of the level and then doing something clever, right? So that's one of the biggest things we could do, is really make good the promise that, you know, it's a huge checkpoint or a huge level. It's with a save game, and you have complete freedom of approach and choice in what you want to do.
Do you have the higher difficulties and stuff with no saves to do the Silent Assassin runs?
Yeah, absolutely. We're still figuring out, obviously since the game is not done yet, exactly what the balance will be. But we want the, let's say, the normal mode to be experimentation friendly. That's a huge part of the deal, right? You know, that you should feel like you save and experiment. Also because, I mean, let's face it, you're not going to just play the mission once, right? It's not about killing Novikov. It's about killing Novikov in numerous ways and figuring out all the crazy stuff you can do in there. But absolutely, yes, that's something we can limit, and maybe even do a completely hardcore version where you don't save at all, which is, in this game, it's really, really hard, because, you know, some of these levels can take, you know, a lot of minutes to go through if you're a Silent Assassin. So in between, complete freedom, and yeah, the total opposite, I would say, in terms of save games.
So it was a move back to the epic set pieces of Blood Money, per se, that Absolution were linked together with narrative, so it's just the epic set pieces and you jump around the globe. Is that how it works, is the structure-wise? Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. What we wanted to accomplish is that we will have locations like Paris where there's something interesting going on. In this case, it's a fashion show. It's also a clandestine secret auction behind the scenes, and there's tons of stuff happening in sort of everywhere you go. And tied to that are tons of sub-stories. You know, Novikov is meeting a KGB station chief that is in hiding. So if you can figure out how to make that meeting work in your advantage, that can be a really cool thing. He's arguing violently with the chief designer of the fashion show. That's a thing you can do. And there's a reporter in the beginning telling you, you know, I'm going to meet Viktor Novikov later. And as a player, that should be your clue to try to figure out what you do. So in that sense, a level is packed full with in-level storytelling and narrative. That's completely up to you if you want to trigger it. What's however not there is the overarching story, because we don't want to force a level to have any specific outcome. So we always assume that 47 comes there, he's there for his mission, his hits, and he comes out on top in the end, having eliminated his targets. And that's sort of the foundation of the overarching story as it evolves throughout the game.
So at the press conferences, the numerous ones, the Sony conference, and of course the Square Enix conference today, your focus seemed to be talking about the online, but this is very much a single-player game, right?
Yeah, so the entire game is a single-player experience, but there is definitely a lot of shared elements in it. So obviously contracts mode is back, so this allows you to play through the game, select your own targets, and then if you complete that mission, you can share that with anyone on your console, basically, with all your friends and so on. So that's still a single-player experience, but something you share with people. And if you imagine the sort of the vast scope of Paris in contracts mode, we have no idea where that will take us. Yeah. So that's one example. But another example of this feeling that you're sharing something with the community is our idea about targets that appear in the game world for a very limited time. So what you need to imagine is, let's say we have Paris and you've been playing Paris, but all of a sudden we inject a new target in there. He's only going to be there for 48 hours, let's say, right? And the thing is, we might not even show you where he is. You might not even be able to find him in instinct. All you have is maybe a portrait. So now you're walking around Paris trying to figure out who this guy is. You know you only have 48 hours. And if he gets scared and escapes, he's gone forever. He will never come back. And when he dies, that's how he dies. We'll keep that in your sort of scorebook forever, right? Was it a silent assassin? Was it a really bloody murder while he was running for his life? That's also something that's permanent. And what we expect here is also this feeling that, you know, this target is live. Other people are on Twitch, you know, sharing what they're doing with this target. You're reading up on all sorts of, you know, impromptu walkthroughs, following maybe some of the best players in the world, trying to really be the first with the risk of failing, right? And then obviously going in yourself, maybe with a little bit of assistance, yeah, from some guides, but still at the end of the day, when you pull that trigger, that's the one shot you get that counts. And that's something completely new that feels like it's a live game. Still single player, still you doing it, but we really love that fantasy and what it does to sort of create a different Hitman experience.
So it's like another element to the narrative. So you'll play the narratives, the story per se, and then you'll throw this target in as like a side target. Is that how it works?
That's a very good example. It can come in different shapes and forms. I think what's to think about is more that, you know, we'll have locations that appear over time, and they will usually also be bringing the story forward. But then we might also have alternate missions, alternate targets that are not necessarily bringing an overarching story forward, but are more following, you know, 47 at work as a professional assassin. And then we also have some of these, you know, time-limited targets that are really, you know, intense to try to catch.
Yeah. So he looks like a younger Agent 47. Mm-hmm. Is this the Agent 47 that we know and have played with for years?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the idea is basically that, as we talked about, we wanted to try to create the best possible setting for a Hitman game as well. So we choose elements from the old games, and what we also say is we want this to take place sometime after Hitman Absolution, because we actually like our world, we like everything that's happened. It's pretty crazy. There's been a lot of storytelling going on. But we wanted to create a place and time where Agent 47 is at his prime. He's at the absolute peak of his career, because it allows us to go for these globe-trotting, high-profile targets. He's with Diana and he's with the ICA, so that was important for us. And what we basically said is, what feels natural here is to say, you know, he will age. That's what people expect, but you know what? He's not going to be 79 years old at any point. So it was more about for us to capture or create a moment in the world of assassination where he is in this condition. So that's why we're doing it the way we're doing it.
Is David back doing the voice?
David Bateson is back doing Agent 47.
Oh, excellent. So the contracts is back. What kind of upgrades have you done to that as a system? Because obviously it was a really fantastic system originally when it was introduced.
I think for now, all I can try to implant is this idea that it's pretty huge and these huge checkpoints. Exactly what we're doing with contracts mode is something we're going to talk about at a little later in time. Sorry. So
in terms of Absolution, there were times when it got a little bit violent and messy. In the new game Hitman, have you decided, can you do it completely stealthily? Can you do everything with accidental kills? Is that what you've aimed for?
Well, when we talk about the game, we talk about a creative stealth action game. And that's actually, those words really mean a lot to me at least. The creativity, that comes first, right? You need to be able to tamper with the level in many different ways. And tampering can come from, bringing a screwdriver to a sort of a PA system, dropping a speaker down on someone. It can be breaking open a door, sort of small things, but really important things, to crashing the entire light rig on Viktor Novikov. But it can also be placing remote detonated explosives in select locations in Paris, and then maybe going a little bit crazy. So I think for me it's important that you feel that you have the choice all of the time, that the game doesn't really end or tell you what's right and what's wrong. There's no doubt in my mind that the aspirational, what you really want to accomplish is a silent assassin perfect playthrough. And in general, we reward you for not killing anyone but your target. But at the end of the day, if you're standing on top of an unconscious security guard and 5 of his friends are running at you, maybe it's a good idea to pick up his assault rifle and maybe at least try to contain the situation. So I like that. You should be surprised as well. It's free. You can do what you want.
Would you call it a reboot? Because obviously you've got rid of all the 47, Blood Money, Absolution. You've got rid of all those kind of monikers after it, and it's just Hitman again. Is it a reboot?
No, I definitely don't think it's a reboot, because again, in our mind, everything has transpired and still part of the world. It's mainly just to say we distilled everything down to its core, and from this, Hitman will actually continue to create a living and breathing world that expands over time. So you should just imagine locations that keep appearing and this world that just keeps expanding. And that's why we simply just called it Hitman. Is
it more of a platform then, as opposed to actually a video game? Because nowadays games platforms is a big thing. So would you say it's more of that?
You could say that. I think that's one way of looking at it. Yeah, so you could look at it like, I feel we're creating a sort of a living world, right? With obviously story elements in there and an overarching story. But I think maybe that's a good way of looking at it. Over time, it will become pretty substantial. Hitman is going to be out on December 8th, 2015.